Morning. Thank you again, Marvin, for having us. Um, I'm Dan from Boom. Um, for those of you who just came from the Stacks demo day, from the Accelerator demo days, uh, this might be comfortable because I'm not very long-winded personally. So we'll have time at the end for questions if you want. Um, so what is Boom? Boom is an NFT minting application, an NFT management application, and basically a creator tool for minting and managing your NFTs. We started off uh, at launch with partnering with Hero for a custom badge for the launch, and we've been minting since then. Starting off that early, of course, brought some challenges. There were no standards. We're still kind of loose on standards, but it's been fun. It's been great learning. It's been wonderful working through kind of all of the issues and updates and things that happen along the way. You can find us on Twitter um, at boom_wallet and on the web at https boom.money. So I've got a presentation here that I can share. Just 1 second. Whoops. Damn it. You wouldn't know how to move this. There we go. So I've already kind of given you an introduction to who we are, or who I am. A little bit more about our team. So I kind of start off our team really around the community. We've had so much support from individual community contributors in terms of like suggestions, bug fixes, uh, support in terms of like what Marvin's provided, giving us the opportunity to talk to you guys. Hero, they've been awesome, their whole team, from Munib all the way down to everybody who's kind of doing the day-to-day work, Joe and Gina and Shannon and JW and Charlie and everybody on the team there. But we really consider kind of our team really starting at the community. We had James Botwina, who is now, I think, with Alex in the Accelerator. He was an early contributor to us. He left to go work with them. And saw you in the chat earlier, James. We miss you. Mahmoud and Haz previously worked at Pravika. They've been contributors. Haz is a person I rely on a lot for kind of JavaScript and architectural things like that. Frieger, who many of you know, he's a core contributor to what we're building here. You know him from Frieger Pool and virtually every other project in Stacks. I don't know how that guy gets anything done. He's spread all over the place, but he's a core contributor to what we're building. And then Leighton and I kind of started this about a year ago, actually. We had originally built Note Riot, which was on the original Stacks 1.0 chain or Stacks 1.0 platform. And, we've been building on Stacks for, I guess, 3-4 years now. So a little bit about the tech stack. Our front end is Vue.js Quasar. And we have a responsive application. It's mobile ready, it's desktop ready. We don't have a good full screen layout currently. That's in progress. Provide a little bit more space on that for people who are familiar with Boom. We've got this kind of Uniswap-like kind of narrow interface, keeps things simple, but we're expanding that. So front end is Vue and Quasar. Our back end, our hosting is on Netlify. We have serverless functions on Netlify and Cloudflare. And let's see, we have a database, Postgres, we're using just for the API data. So we are building our own instance of the Stacks API. That's in Postgres. Our storage layer is across multiple different areas. We have AWS S3. We have DigitalOcean Spaces, which we're kind of migrating to away from S3 for kind of centralized content, for kind of static content. And then we also use IPFS and Filecoin backed stuff for Boomboxes currently, and we're expanding that into kind of the NFTs that regular users can mint themselves as well. And some of these technologies we kind of start off on the more simple kind of like uncomplicated use cases, and we roll them out to the users as we've kind of perfected how they work and how we process those things and stuff like that. Friedger Pool is the backend for Boomboxes. If any of you are familiar with Boomboxes, Boomboxes are NFTs that basically produce a yield from POX, from proof of transfer. And Friedger has been a great partner in that. Friedger Pool is where we put our delegation so that we can kind of contribute to that community pool. And then, of course, we have Clarity on the back end. That's our favorite smart contracting language. Demo. Let me show you Boom for those of you who haven't seen it. It's here somewhere. Here we go. So this is the primary Boom interface. Currently, the default home screen, you'll get your NFT layout. You can see more of your NFTs if you so desire. We have a simple wallet. We're kind of minimizing this functionality as we go through because our primary focus is NFTs, but basic wallet functionality with some of the SIP10 support for tokens that support SIP10. So you can see Miami Coin and Nothing Coin here, and just kind of transaction lists. We support, the standard stuff like transferring stacks and transferring any of the SIP10 coins that we support. We also support transferring by the BTC domain names. So if you have a name like munib.btc, I could transfer stacks to you just using that name from the Boom application. We also have primary focus here is actually minting content for NFT creators. So very simple interface right now. Select a file and give it a name and decide how many copies you want. Right now we're doing up to 10 and then create. So this is our primary focus right now. This is getting expanded as we build out that backend API support. We've got testing working with videos up to 120 meg. And we're doing up to 300 NFTs at a time. Right now we're limited to 10. Currently also right now I don't know why this transaction's not popping up. Currently right now also we're putting data into S3, images up into S3. Those will be going into IPFS. Like I said, that's the way Boomboxes are working right now. Custom minting will go in, images will go into IPFS too, and give you those kind of advantages that IPFS has as a protocol as well. And yeah, I don't know why this thing's not popping up. And then finally, Boomboxes, opportunity to kind of provide a yield for those folks who like NFTs and also want to participate in the stacking delegation. So we allow actually, excuse me, we allow you to stack as little as 40 stacks because we want to make this kind of like as widely available to as many people as possible. Frieger obviously is a huge support in this because we depend on him for kind of the management of the back end of the delegation. And yeah, and so what a boombox gives you basically is you get a reward depending relative to your stacking amount, and you also get a unique NFT. So boomboxes are minted only for a certain period of time. We had a first, second, and third edition boomboxes. Our third edition was a collaboration with Miami Coin, or I'm sorry, with City Coin, and it was kind of a celebration of the Miami Coin launch. We did that. You can see that actually on my screen here. No, you can't. Where is it? Here it is. Our third edition. So this will generate a yield, and it's a limited edition NFT, right? So after block, I think it was 699,300 or something like that, Bitcoin block. These will never be minted again. So we really like that dynamic, kind of unique NFTs, and then also obviously the DeFi yield. Right now we're yielding in stacks, but we have plans to. I'll talk about my roadmap actually here in just a second. Get back here. I can't see if there's chat going on, if there's questions going on, so somebody interrupt me if I need to answer something critically. So roadmap, marketplace is key. For those of you who've been in the ecosystem, you've seen kind of some of the issues that have arisen from things like the Punks marketplace. I really don't want to do that to the Stacks blockchain with Boom Market, and so I've been hesitant to put stuff out there that relies solely on Clarity. We're building up, like I said, the infrastructure around the marketplace to kind of make things more performant and do as little impact on the chain as possible and the API servers. But that's coming. The creator platform. So a creator platform is not just going to do custom minting, but also custom boomboxes and other forms of different boomboxes. So the creator platform for boomboxes would allow the creators to actually receive a yield instead of that going to like individuals. Or the creators can set it up so that they can split that yield with their contributors, or they can get the full yield, and users will be able to go and delegate and do all that stuff with their favorite artists. Bitcoin and Lightning payments, that's coming. Also something that's pretty easy it's a pretty low hanging fruit. We want to make sure we get the marketplace kind of right first. Bitcoin boomboxes, like I alluded to a little bit earlier, right now we're providing rewards in stacks, but some of the work that Freaker's done and Jude had done in the past allow us to start rewarding, start doing stacking with NFTs and rewarding in Bitcoin in a completely kind of decentralized, trustless way. So look for that in the future. Bitcoin native swaps. So think catamaran swaps for those of you who are familiar with that. Again, some work Freaker's done in the past. Cross-chain NFT transfers. And so this is something that we kind of latched onto actually based on work that Marvin's done for the atomic swap, or is it atomic swaps? Yeah. So we started investigating that too. And yeah, we've got tons of ideas, lots more coming here, a lot more options in terms of what we can do. Yeah, so that's us. Our contracts, our open source, obviously. They're in our repo at gitlab.com/riot.ai/clarity-boom-pool. I'll put that in chat. They're out there for anyone to go out and take a look at, help us improve them if you want. But yeah, that's us, that's Boom.
Thank you so much, Dan. Very insightful, and I like it. It's really to the point. So you ended with a Q&A slide, so I guess we can open up the room for everyone to ask questions. So feel free. I will make it possible for everyone to unmute themselves, so you can ask it through mic, or you can put it in chat. So there you go. Everyone should be able to unmute. also inadvertently muted Dan, so you can go ahead and unmute yourself again. All right.
So a couple of questions I see already. Frieger doesn't sleep. That's true. Why doesn't Boom use Gaia? So we actually have that in test. There's a couple of different ways to use Gaia. One is for like storing stuff that you're like working on. So we have this concept of like in progress or projects basically. So as you want to build up something as a creator, you want to build up maybe a suite of different images or something like that. We'll use Gaia for like storage for that kind of stuff for your kind of in progress projects. But also Gaia allows you to take obviously direct ownership of your data, right? That's one of the beautiful things about it. This is something that we did with Note Riot years ago, and so we can do the same thing with NFTs, right? Like you can publish NFTs and like reveal based on some smart contract trigger, or maybe it's a delegation trigger, right? You know, via with proof of transfer, like you stack on you delegate to a certain address, and at a certain point, you know, something gets revealed or something gets transferred. So yeah, Gaia is definitely part of how we'll be working. And we really like the idea of kind of private NFTs. The hard part about having kind of private NFTs is you end up having to do multiple steps for things like transfers. And that's not necessarily a terrible thing, but it's something that we'd like to work on. I'd like to work on the UX for that a little bit better. But yeah, Gaia is definitely a huge part of the plans. Let's see here. What's your favorite thing about Clarity? What tips do you have for students who are just getting started? Caitlin. My favorite thing about Clarity actually is kind of how, what's the word? It works the way you would expect. I don't find a lot of gotchas. Now, I'm not a huge Clarity developer. People like Haas and Figure have done the primarily the bulk of our Clarity development. But I started off not looking at Clarity at all. And as you get used to it, it's like it works the way you would expect. When you look at some code, you can kind of immediately tell what's happening. And I think that's a kind of a feature of like functional programming and kind of how it's laid out. But yeah, I would say that's my favorite part of it is I can look at code, and other than some of the really complex stuff that like Krieger's doing, you know, I can immediately tell like what exactly is happening, and it works. You don't have a bunch of unexpected kind of structures and things like that. Yeah. Let's see here. Boom.money seems just like a boom. Thank you, I think. Does Boom do any review governance on the ownership of digital images or photos as part of NFT created for minting? Not yet. Dwayne sent this question. We need to put a disclaimer out there, but this is kind of a decentralized tool. The contracts are decentralized out there. Like, even if you didn't use Boom, you could go and use the contract directly, right? So we don't police the images. Right now, we don't have any kind of disclaimer or kind of like guarantee on there, but we want to do that. And then another part of this whole NFT ecosystem, one that's been severely under discussed, and I've been complaining about this since last August, is really metadata standards. Frieger had created a SIP to talk about metadata standards last, I think, October. It's still kind of waiting there for more discussion, but part of that standard, I believe, should include things like license notices or things like that. It's something that someone could add to a description currently for the anything they're minting today. So if you wanted to put something up and you wanted to add a license to it, you can do that. We've kind of made sure that that's an option, but it would be nice to get a little bit more rigorous on that, for sure. What's next for Boom Team? Are you looking for help? Shannon. Yes, Shannon, I need a ton of help. So I think the first revision of this little presentation, as long as it is, actually had the word help in it like 6 times. So we definitely need help. We've got some core contributors, but we're all actually working part-time on this right now. Kind of, we have day jobs. And so, yeah, definitely we need help. If you've got back-end experience, if you have Cloudflare experience, if you have Quasar or Vue experience, we definitely appreciate any help. Excuse me. Drew asks, what are your thoughts on existing Stacks toolset? Clarinet, kind of improvements would you like to see in these? Clarinet is awesome in the time that I've used it. I haven't used it enough. To be honest, recently, let's see, I've been primarily focused on the back-end work. I've been kind of working on an update to the Boombox contract so that we can kind of eliminate some of the double steps that are required right now. And in that scope, like Clarinet's been awesome, doing things like just showing you errors. Like that's the best part of it. Just kind of highlighting things that you're doing wrong right off the bat. I love Clarinet. I think the libraries are amazing. The Stacks transactions, network, storage, all of those different libraries as they're split up now used to be one, just blockstack.js. And even then it was really awesome because it allowed someone to come in and like really easy kind of add kind of Bitcoin level encryption and secure people's data and things like that. But like the work that's been going on that library for the past year to split things out and make things more modular and like the profile work that hadn't even really been touched yet by anybody in the ecosystem, as far as I can tell. Like we're eager to jump on that profile library and actually start allowing people to like customize profiles and stuff like that. There's some awesome tools in the platform. Clarinet's an awesome tool, and I think there was an announcement. I haven't had a chance to try it for I forget what it's called, but it's for like a standalone dev environment, like right out of the box. I'm eager to try that when we get a chance. Let's see. Brittany says, where do you see Boom 6 months, a year from now? 6 months, a year from now, I expect us to have the creator platform complete and live. I would like to see multiple, creators kind of working their audiences, or not working their audiences, but like interacting with their audiences via Boom. Like we're providing some analytics tools on top of the creator platform so that people can see like which NFTs are actually gathering the most interest, where they're going, things like that, how they're being traded. We definitely need improvements to our smart contracts. So things like royalty payments need to be added to Boom contracts so that folks can, like, as we get the market out there, folks can kind of get those residual sales as things sell multiple times. I see us with a bigger team and definitely a full screen interface. And all the creator development tools out there. Let's see, I'm falling behind here on these notes. James says, can you study a landscape of your contracts? How many are you interacting with? Which ones at front end directly? Currently we're interacting with, I think, 6 contracts. Some of those are just like older versions of the Boom minting tools. So we obviously want to support those. So we support kind of like reading from them mostly. There's only one minting contract that's kind of current at the time, and we just basically kind of keep an index of which one's current. Any of them can obviously still be used from the Explorer if somebody wanted to, but so we support using those. But in terms of like the actual app, it's only actually minting to one of them currently. There are 3 Boombox contracts currently. That should go to 5 with the next iteration. And again, primarily it's really supporting kind of reading from those old contracts. And then we have like 1 current contract for actually minting things. Let's see here. C030, working with other teams, like ecosystem for cross compatibility, like open source art or any potential digital gaming rights. We've got a lot of folks that are talking to us about partnerships. Some in the Stacks ecosystem are more focused on like how we can collaborate. But we haven't, I think, talked to open source art at all, as far as I know. That definitely, we're definitely open to it. Like I said, I consider our team kind of the community is part of the team. So if you have like a suggestion or an introduction, I'd be happy to have that. Zero authority. Let's see. Peter N says, related to James' question, what's your thoughts on using NFT for music sheets? Definitely an option. One of the things I did mention earlier, but as we expand out, like just not the number of NFTs that you can mint in a single mint, in a single series, and then moving to IPFS and things like that, is obviously different file types. I mentioned testing with video. Video is going to be supported. PDFs will be supported. I don't know, honestly, if music sheets have their own format. That'd be something I'd have to look into. But like any of these things that you really want to lock up and kind of identify as like personal property are an opportunity for NFTs here. Let's see here. Godfred says, can you give us marketplace launch time and how it is interacting with Clarity? No, I can't give you the launch time because honestly, I was expecting to have it like in June. So it's not behind necessarily. It's just that like Frieger had actually put out a marketplace contract, I don't know, like last March or something like that. So like it's not unknown technology to make it work. My issue is making it work well. And we, like I mentioned, JW from Hero, he's been helping us a lot recently with kind of some of the backend infrastructure. I really want to make it performant, and I don't want to spam the chain with a bunch of transactions that end up slowing everything down. So one of the things we have to add that's on us, and it's a simple add, I just haven't done it yet, is support for the new wallet, like modifying fees. So right now we're still using kind of standard fees. That's on us. Need to add that. And then, like I said, the backend infrastructure. But it's coming. It's just I want to make sure it works well. Let's see here. Are Stacks NFT similar to 720 or 1150? Can you explain more about it? Actually, so Quazon, sorry if I mispronounced your name, Quazon. The NFT is essentially the same. Stacks NFTs can be done in a number of ways. If you look at how Residio did theirs, it's way more complex. This is number one. NFTs were way more complex. The Boom NFTs are kind of more what you're used to and kind of like OpenSea and everything like that. In terms of 721 or 1155, like the metadata is one of the things I was complaining about earlier. Like we don't have any good standards for metadata on the Stacks ecosystem yet. I've talked with Residio. I've talked personally with some other folks who are working on NFTs in the accelerator, and everybody seems to agree that we should do this. But we really need to get more interaction on that SIP that Frieger had started and get that identified. I can show you some of the metadata that this is actually 1155 like. Let me see if I can share here. So in terms of just like NFTs being similar, yes, they're exactly the same. But let me show you. Metadata. Like this is what we're playing with right now. In terms of like metadata standards, you can see this is on IPFS, but simple name description and then a properties property, and then localization. This is actually similar to ERC 1155. They've got a localization that provides a URL and different locales for localization for some of the content that you want to provide. I've tested this. This works fine. And then obviously an image. There's some still like we have to align on like what exactly we use, because as we move forward, like everybody wants their experience to be good with these things. And if you've looked at an NFT in like Xverse, which like I use Xverse on my Android phone, Like the NFT is just like the standard image, right? And we want the experience to be better for everybody across the ecosystem. So we really have to align on those standards, and hopefully we can get something like what we've done there with that sample I showed you. That's really kind of 1155 like, because I think that's like the more advanced standard. And if we just define stuff in properties, like that's an easy low hanging fruit. There's some other options in there in terms of like display types that will allow us to like even ramp up kind of the user experience, right? Like if I can give you design hints in the metadata as to what type of data is being provided, then the user experience gets ramped up even more. And this is again something I'm complaining about since last year, but we'll get there. Clarinet integrate. I agree. What would I ask from the community? Brittany asks, what would I ask for from the community? You know, we've had so much support. I would just say like suggestions. If you find issues, one of the things, and this is not a boom thing or a stacks thing, but like if you're a developer, you know that a lot of time users will run across a bug in an application and blame themselves. So like most valuable users are definitely the people who are like complaining about something not working right, even if it's a one-time thing. So like raise an issue if you find something that's not working right. We've had folks question fees and like we haven't modified fees. But like, why are the fees changing? Well, like these are the kinds of things like that really kind of help us work through like finding the best experience for the users. So yeah, speak up is the best kind of thing I would ask for from the community. Jose Soto says, any tips on the best way to version contracts and how to upgrade from older ones? I think we're still figuring this out. If you saw Jason's talk last week, last Thursday, last Friday. He also talked about like the need to like consider the stuff ahead of time. So breaking the contracts into kind of smaller, more discrete parts helps. And honestly, I think this is something that we need to kind of iterate through for a while. Hopefully part of this Clarity universe will come to some good conclusions on the best way to do these. I think there's no like good way to just upgrade, right? You can't just upgrade right now. But what we're doing in terms of like supporting multiple contracts is really just like from the application standpoint, kind of identifying the things that we support, and kind of modularizing the support for those contracts in the code, right? So as we see things that may not be used anymore, maybe we can retire that piece. But yeah, upgrade is not a good thing right now. There's no good way to do it right now, at least that I'm aware of. Marvin, please let me know if there's a good way that I'm not aware of, because I'd love to have it. Juliet, hi Juliet. Juliet asks, what's on your wish list to get Boom to the 6-month roadmap? Anything that can impact the community positively, new tools. You know, that's a tough one. Just because I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective. Wish list to get Boom to 6 months is probably just more help. And we've also been kind of picky about help. We're looking, we've been looking for people who've been part of the ecosystem for a while, and actually have shown like a genuine interest in like Stacks. We consider ourselves a Stacks application first and foremost. We're big believers in the Stack ecosystem and the Stacks teams for years and years. And so, for me, it would be, just kind of more folks interested in Stacks development, and having those folks kind of reach out to us. Martin, good opportunity for those who want to be part of the conversation. That's it for metadata. I will try and find that and send that. That's in there somewhere. I think it's SIP 11 or 8, somewhere around there. How do you access data from IPFS from the data that's actually on chain? We use the standard. So Daniel asks how we get the data from IPFS. So NFTs, the NFT SIP9 standard actually specifies a get token URI function. And so basically, with the new Boom NFTs, what we'll be doing is putting an IPFS URL in that token URI response, and the IPFS URL would have pointers to would actually be a pointer to the metadata, and then we'd get an image based on that. So yeah, it's part of the standard SIP9 get token URI is the best way to do that, and that's just like a regular contract call. It's a read-only contract call to get token URI. +1 for experts. I agree. Is there any other POX use cases that you're excited about for NFTs? Andre asks about POX use cases. So I'm excited about POX as a platform. Use cases are virtually infinite. We have an ongoing discussion with someone in the community talking about healthcare, right? Like if we can provide ways to pay for healthcare for communities with POX and NFTs. It doesn't even have to be NFTs, but obviously our focus is NFTs, and NFTs provide some kind of unique ways of accessing, like if we tokenize the NFT that does POX, and you start, kind of providing even more interesting use cases. So like POX as a platform, this has an infinite number of use cases. City Coins is one, and Sigil is working on another one, right, with their paid or their reward process. I'm sorry if I messed that up, but Sigil is working on others. But you're gonna see, we've talked to some other folks in the ecosystem about this, but you're gonna see just like 1,000 different niches of POX, applying POX to their different niche. And am I excited about one? I like it for like creator rewards, like that's our primary focus. And I like it for ways for kind of engaging with audiences, right? You can do things like I said, you can use them to gauge interest in specific areas and things like that. So it really provides like more tools for people to interact with each other, not just with like an audience, but even kind of directly. POX as a platform is just huge, and I think you're going to see it everywhere. You're going to see like 100 startups all with their variation of what they're doing on POX. Reagan A says, does Boom plan to minimize fees for its creator platform marketplace compared to other blockchains? Is it possible to minimize the number of transactions, clicks required during the minting process? Yes and yes. One thing I would say as a caveat to minimizing fees is I'm not a big fan of the whole mint off-chain thing. I think it's kind of cheating, and maybe that's something I just need my mind changed on. And especially when the stacks fees are so low. So there are definitely things we can do. If anyone who's minted an NFT in the second half of this last cycle, we used to have a process where, minted a boombox. Boomboxes you required to allow delegation for our contract, and then you could actually delegate. Like we wiped out that whole waiting period just by making it a single click. So I think we're actually making the minting process more complex because we're providing more options for you. Like we're providing the option to add more languages. We're providing the option to like provide better description, better story about your NFT or your NFTs or your series that you're providing. In that sense, it's going to get like potentially like more options for you and kind of heavier. But in terms of like the listing, like that's just going to be one click. In terms of like you want to list 50 of these instead of 100, that's going to be one click. So we want to make that as easy as possible, definitely. But also like we're also adding features too. So it's possible. Yeah. Brad says opening up your source code, even if it's just partially, could bring you more help. Yeah, I agree, Brad. We will be opening up the front end code. I just want to clean it up. Just yesterday, I found out that we were running function for every NFT. That's actually a remnant of our legacy, the way NFTs had to be done like at launch. So for folks like Werner, who's out there, who's a huge part of our community, who's got a bunch of NFTs, we were running a function and calling the API like 200 times. And I saw this yesterday and I was like, what's going on, right? So there's a lot of cleanup that has to happen. Yeah, the front end definitely will be opened up, Brad. Is there a standard on what metadata should look like? Joshua asks, there's not currently a standard. I want to use the standard that I'm kind of working with. And like I said, I've talked with Residio about this. I've talked with, crap, I forget the name, some others. And we all agree. I think we just need to kind of align on what that standard looks like. Piotr asks, what's your thinking about scaling transaction volumes on stacks? Yeah, scaling transaction volume it's a couple of things. One, like Clarity and smart contracts are basically a back end, right? They're your back end processing, but they can't be your entire back end. And so there's a couple of things here. One is app chains. So what Citycoin did with POX Lite is kind of app chain like, but it's not quite as scalable as like what app chains will bring us. So app chains are going to be huge, and then actually like providing kind of a supplement to Clarity for that back end. So there's things you can do like caching and some like centralized processing, which I think is fair as long as you can like actually replicate all the data from on-chain transactions. So any place you don't need like trustless transactions, you probably shouldn't be using smart contract, right? And so I think part of it is just being smart about pulling those like non-trustless required pieces off of smart contracts. And like if you mint an NFT, right now you want that hash and you want the immutability, right, that IPFS gives you. Right now, like if you mint a Boom NFT, it goes to AWS. You don't get that immutability, right, unless you download the image yourself. But the hash is there, and you can always verify it. But if you do things like cache the images, then you're making things a lot faster everywhere. Like you put a CDN in front of whatever your image store is, right? IPFS makes that harder, but you can do both, right? Like you could have that immutability and that content hashing with IPFS and keep a centralized copy of it, right? To make things speed things up, speed up your displays and stuff like that. So I think you just have to be smart about like how your architecture actually works. Let's see, where was I? Quazon asks, how do you plan to interact with other project NFTs if you're going to make it open? So it will be open APIs and open standards. Definitely open standards. The biggest in terms of interacting with other NFTs, like we've had to manually support the Stacks punks and free punks. They're using like a non-standard, I would say, way of doing like the get token URI that I mentioned earlier. Like if you use that, if you go and see the get token URI for Stacks punks, they're actually pointing to a PNG that's just a huge map of all 10,000 punks images, right? Which is useless if you're trying to actually just display this, right? So we actually had to like do a custom mapping to like say, okay, let's actually go to their CDN and get punk, 1124, whatever your personal punk is. So like having to do that for every different contract that comes live doesn't scale, right? That's why I'm so big on like, let's get this metadata standard out there so that we can like all align on how this stuff should work. And hopefully at some point we get to the point where it's like, you know what, if you don't follow the standard, you're just not getting supported, right? There'll be multiple marketplaces. Boom won't be the only one. And so hopefully we can align on like what the standards that we're supporting are. And that way, like we can make sure that users have as many options as possible and users have the best experience as possible, really. So in terms of like supporting other projects, if you're doing something crazy, I think you have less and less chance of being supported. It took us a while to actually support Stacks punks, and that really only happened because I knew the guy who was doing free punks, and he basically showed me what I needed to do. So like I wired up free punks, and then it was easy to just transfer that to how Stacks punks was working. That doesn't scale, so we need standards. Dylan Floyd says, curious how NFTs of large files work where it's critical for the content to never change. So if I get a token URI pointing to a server where the content is stored, can we also store some compressed data? Yeah, and this is what I was referring to about just like even with simple images, like you can't do a CDN for IPFS, but you can do a CDN with the same content, right? So it's like, excuse me, caching files in a different way and putting a CDN in front of it is definitely an option. Whether it's like, large files that never need to change and you need like some compressed version or some watermark version, you can do those kinds of things too. Definitely an option. Shannon says, where do we get some of that Boom merch? Yeah, actually, we make a joke. I've actually got, one second here. We joke in on the Boom team that we're actually just kind of working on a merch. Merch is really our end goal. We have a store that we've only kind of used internally, but maybe we make that available at some point. Let's see here. Joshua, where can I follow the conversation for standardizing metadata? I will have to look that up. I don't remember exactly where it is. It's in the StacksGov on github.com/stacksgov/sips. It's one of the issues in that list. If you go to that repo, I'll put it in chat here. github.com stacksgov sips. Oh no, it's not SIP. It's not SIP 9, Shannon. It's actually a metadata standard that is related. Metadata for NFTs. So it's actually issue 17 in the StacksGov SIP repo. So Joshua, Sandy, look at the SIPs, the StacksGov GitHub repo in the SIPs repository and issue number 17. Marshall says, any chance you guys plan to open a BTC domain marketplace? We actually talked about this the other day, and part of the issue is that IDs, these BNS names, users can only own one, right? And so how do you have a marketplace for, and Marvin, correct me if I'm wrong here, but my understanding, you can only own one. So like, how can I like buy and sell multiples unless I have different accounts for everyone? So you have to create a new account for everyone that you want to own, and you'd have to like transfer stacks or something to every account so that you could buy or sell them. It's kind of there are ways to do it. Frigger came up with this awesome kind of pool idea. But it feels really cumbersome. To me, it would be easier to like find a way, and I don't know if it's possible, but find a way to allow users to own more than one identity, one ID, right? Yeah. Also, the keys for BTC names, so they're listed as NFTs, and if you go to your NFT events API, you'll get the BNS names. In your list of NFTs that you own, but the key that they use is actually a tuple, which includes like the domain, like the .btc, and then your identity, and maybe something else, I forget. And that also works differently from like all the kind of quote unquote regular NFTs. It's a standard NFT, but it's works slightly different, so it requires some other processing as well there.
Yeah, you're right. I just quickly wanted to tap in on it as well. It's like I know more people are talking about domain marketplaces, and actually, like I saw one once. I came across a website that was supposedly selling some BTC names, but since then I couldn't find it. So if anyone knows of it, please drop it in the chat again somewhere on Discord, because I've seen it. But yeah, Dan is right. So you can only own one name per principal. So a principal is either a wallet address or a contract. And that just makes it very tricky to create a trustless marketplace that can manage these for you. So we were also discussing that with people, and we had this idea like, well, maybe you want to have users deploy a super small contract per name, so they sort of have a very small contract in escrow, and you could abstract it away through a wallet experience, but still a little tricky because you got to deploy a new contract for every name that you own. But that makes it possible because the contract would then own the name, and you can have multiple. But there's many issues with that.
You'd have to have like this little contract factory, which is
and sadly you cannot with a contract call you can never deploy a contract. So Clarity is not allowed to deploy a contract on chain, so you would have to do that through the experience of the app. So then your wallet is going to deploy that contract for you. So if it's a custom interface like Boom, that could work. But if you do that through Hero's wallet, you just get a contract deployed pop up saying like, hey, you want to deploy this thing, and then the user ends up paying for that. So it's not ideal. Anyway, like I didn't want to interrupt because there are so many great questions, but I see that we did hit the 1 hour mark. So Dan, you must be exhausted answering all of that. But we could continue the discussion in the Discord channels if you like. And I'm sure Dan would be there to answer some more questions, and otherwise he'll pop up again later somewhere. Any closing thoughts that you want to add, Dan, or maybe someone has a closing question?
Yeah, I just want to, getting back to the whole merge thing, I wanted to show Shannon and everybody this. I don't know if y'all can see that. It's the City Coin 3rd edition beach towel.
Beach towel, that's awesome.
Which again, we just like kind of made internally, and then I was like, oh, I have to get that.
Can you sell those with an NFT included? Like get the NFT, get the beach towel free, or the other way around?
Keep that thought in your head.
I will.
There's stuff coming.
All right, great guys. Thank you so much for all the questions. It's very exciting to see so much interest, and NFTs are very hot. And I have to say, Dan, like hats off your apps, and it always looks amazing. So congrats to you and your team on continued success. It's just super cool to see.
Thanks a lot. Thank you everybody for the questions and for your time. I appreciate y'all showing up.